we up? It had a really hard time going live there. It just did this right in the middle of the screen. See, we got some of you guys in here. Thanks for waiting around for this sideshow known as the Hoosier Garage. What are you saying, Captain Do? It is all it is to make a 70s. Yeah, that's the grill. Yes, I thought for a second you said it's rough to doing that or something. What's going on, everybody? We've had a bunch of new subs this week. A lot of them came from Just Mopar Joe. So if you are here via Mopar Joe or Just Mopar Joe, thank you for joining us. Make yourself at home. Welcome to the state of Indiana, even though you're not living in Indiana, or you might be. I don't know. You tell me. I've got a bunch of videos in queue. Last week we put out a bunch of videos, well, a bunch for here, this channel, but there's like 3 or 4, okay? And did really good. We got a lot of people watching. That's great. Hey, Tails. Hey, Iron Horse. Doug. Yeah, so having fun making videos. This is the part of YouTube that a lot of us have an initial goal to get. And right now I'm in the slog of it. We have, I'll refresh it just in case somebody's jumped on. I doubt it. But the better part of the day, we've been sitting at 833 subscribers. 833 great people that have taken a moment to hit subscribe right down there and give us the time of the day, if not more. So we really appreciate that. Yeah, we got 833. So thank you very much. Every one of you is appreciated. And any one of you is welcome to message me at any time, comment as you please, and we can talk something out. You've got a friend right here on YouTube. Because that's Hoosier hospitality. That's what we do here. Okay, so that's part of the theme of this channel is we do car stuff, we do car-related stuff, and we promote our wonderful state that I live in, that I've lived in all my life, and I love very much. And you're welcome here. So another thing is the YouTube, getting back on the aspiration, what we want to get to. There's the 1,000 mark subscribers. That's when it starts getting real for a lot of people. So when it gets real there, you also have to have so many watch hours in the past 365 days. And you all are doing great. You're really watching the videos. I'm hitting around 3,500. I'm kind of floating because I lose. See, if you go back yesterday, a year ago, if I had a good day then, I lose it the next day. I lose that initial spike. So I was doing really good this time last year, and it's affecting me now as I'm moving forward. So I'm kind of floating in that 3,500 watch area. So I'm going to try to get out some more of the stuff that you like to see, and hopefully you all watch everything and watch the old stuff again. If you like any of the old videos, go back and watch them. Maybe suggest them to a friend. So I really appreciate that. We got a great situation going over here on the sidebar. A lot of people. We got some folks from Norway. Mopar Nut, as always, is with us. He's one of our mods. Tales from the Yard. Yes, he has a Barracuda, early Barracuda. I love you, man. I love you. Tails is still sitting at just under 500. Let's help Tails get over 500 subs. So see over here on the chat, Tails from the Junkyard. Make sure you take a second, even if you have to leave the chat. That's how nice a guy I am. Even if you have to leave the chat, it's easier to type his name in on YouTube and go over there and subscribe. He doesn't put out a lot of videos, but when he puts out a video, it is top-notch quality. So make sure you follow along. They have a lot of good tech stuff, a lot of good just down deep in the heart kind of information. He had one about his dad here on Father's Day. Really enjoyed that, about his dad's car history, and that was really a good video. So make sure you check that out. Yeah, and our neighbors from the north, Michigan, they made a almost all of our classic cars. I know my van was made in St. Louis, but my car, the old 72 Duster, that was made in Hamtramck, one of the areas in Detroit. So we are all part of the Midwest here, and all proud of it. So on the docket, we have a few things. This is a Friday. Don't usually come on a Friday. Usually go out to eat stuff, but we're going to do that later when we get off of here. But we got a couple things, and one of them's right here. We're going to have a video on this, okay? Now, all you guys that really are, aching for engine mechanical stuff, this video probably won't be for you. But if you like customizing, if you like working with your hands just in general, if you like working with wood, this will be a good one for you. In the van world, these are very popular, and it's the snack consoles. And we just completed this one. Well, actually, it's almost complete. It will be complete tonight, okay? And I'll tell you why it's not complete now. So we have a cherry that started out as a cherry slab, both pieces, this piece up here and this one, with the exception of the pedestals. Me and my dad built this. A little bit of hole saws, a little bit of jigsaw action. Can't really see it too well, but under here, we got some router action. This was a very rough board to begin with. You can kind of see some of the marks here and here. These are the rough cut marks. I left it on the bottom. We had to deal with some of this with a hand planer and a table planer. So woodwork action going on here. And we used a nice stain, classic American from Minwax, and some polyurethane. You get that stuff at the hardware store, Minwax. And it's pretty much just went touchable here in the last hour. And I just based the designs kind of off of the old stuff you saw back in the magazines. A lot of times they put an 8-track in here, so I made it wide enough to hold an 8-track. I do have a few kicking around. But it also doubles as a cell phone holder. Who'd have thunk? So that works great. And so we'll have a big in-depth video. If you're interested in this, it'll be a full detail video. And we'll show you what we did, how we did it, little tips and stuff here. Yeah, it's cherry. This is cherry wood. It's kind of a dark stain. It's a hardwood. And we did make sure to use poly because if you're going to set your sweaty drinks on here, you don't want it leaving little rings as much as you would get on like shellac or lacquer. So that's what we got there. Stay tuned for that. Also, we have some stuff that's going to be happening on other things in the interior related to wood. And that'll be some cherry clad beams with lights in the end. So for a very retro effect in the van. So there'll be a video, not detailing it too much, but mainly just showing you kind of the effect of it and how it's going back in the van. So yeah, that's what's going on with that. Also some roof insulation for the van. And we also have another video as far as kind of gearing it back into the main genre here of the drivability of the van. It is now a street driving van. And you will get to see us on the street, seeing as it had so much time down and I've went through so much of it mechanically and taking into account that I am a human, that I was very careful up and down our street here. I live on a dead-end street, so that's really good for testing out your cars when they're going back on the road. And then I also have like an industrial park and a school zone back behind me. Well, school's out for summer, and a lot of the industry is not in there on the weekend, so you can go back through there. Yeah, and I was telling Mopar about a carburetor hiccup I have. When it's cold, it'll kind of bog and kind of stumble when you take off from a stop. Like you come up to a stop sign, you're just accelerating and it idles down, then you hit it, it doesn't do it. But when you come up to a stop sign, you get the old stumble. And I've kind of solved some of it, not completely. So I'm still looking at a few things. We're going to tie the choke back and make sure that's not one of them. But I did adjust the timing and the idle screws, or yeah, actually I did hit the idle screw, and I also hit the fuel air mixture screws, and it's really minimized it. But I think when right when you start it up and take off, it does it, but then it clears up as the vehicle warms up. So I have driven the van. I put about 50 miles on it over the weekend. So July 4th, I was driving around, and we drove the van down by the river. So there's your irony. And so we did that down on the by the Ohio River and went down there. So you'll get to see a nice little bit of footage of that. That might be the next video coming up. I'm still working on some of the others. So tell me all what you think, what you all got going on. Any questions you got, any answers you got, we'll take them all. So, what's going on, guys? Government cheese. I remember government cheese. That's probably one of the last people that remembers government cheese. Well, I'll tell you, if 318s have fuel distribution issues, maybe this has the old single plane style cast iron intake from the factory on there. You know, it just looks like a really couple of runners that goes, they're flat. So it might be worth having the dual plane later intake on there, which probably later in 72 is when they put them on there. At least 360s had them, but I know 318s took a while. But maybe that's part of the issue. But it runs really good. It's actually got really good power. I went ahead and changed the oil on it finally. It was about 15 to 20 years old, and I drained it out, put a new filter and oil in it, and so far so good. It's a 2-barrel right now. I rebuilt the 2-barrel. It was a Carter BBD, I think, and went together really good. I think I set the choke on it with their little tool they give you. I'm fine with 2-barrel. I know if you go 4-barrel, you gotta have to swap everything out, but we might do that later. But I'm not gonna. If it's just a little issue, we can straighten out. I mean, it's just a van, right? So everybody wants the race car stuff. So, and I'll tell you what, it does sway bar. And if you guys are into the vans and you think they don't make a front sway bar, I contacted ADCO the other day, and I said, hey, everywhere I've looked for these 71 through 77 models, I can never find a junked one with a sway bar in the front or in the back for that matter. I said, and anytime I see something aftermarket, it's always rear, oddly. So the gentleman wrote me back and said, oh, here's your part numbers. But they're part numbers that when you look them up, they don't show anything anywhere on Google, internet, anything. So it must be something they just don't really put out there. But when I go to order one, I have to order that number, and I should get a front bar. So if I do that, I'm going to make sure we do a video on that, because I know a lot of people they're lost when it comes to what to do about a sway bar in the front. And I definitely think this van needs it, because with manual steering and you're coming into a tight corner or a little hot, it's a little bit of work to put in there. It's not a modern vehicle. I'll give it that. But it's fun. It's like driving a big dump truck and a B-body all in one. So. Yeah, I might be able to adjust the accelerator pump. It's on the right adjustment. There's like 3 of them. It's in the middle one, I believe. And how's the gear ratio, engine RPM at highway speed? Really good. It's a little hard to tell that it's so raw inside the passenger compartment right now. I don't have carpet or anything in there. I don't have a seal on the doghouse, so it's pretty noisy. But it does idle, or I'm sorry, not idle, but it does cruise along really good, 55 to 65. I even took it on the interstate for about 3 miles one day, and it did great. It held true and everything. Yeah, van drag racing. Everybody gets on YouTube and starts going into drag racing mode, which, I mean, that's cool. But you got to learn when to pull that back, because not everything's drag racing. Yep, got sway bar on it. Yeah, they did have them. Actually, the service manual I got for 73 shows a picture of one. But there's no part number, and I even see RVs, which you think an RV van, you know, the van with the front, it's a 300 series, 1 ton, and they put the RV section on the back of it. You think for sure those would get sway bars? Nope. Doug, you could. I don't know how they changed over the years. I thought about looking at. They got a '99 model sitting over here at the junkyard. It looks like it's got one under it. I don't know how different they are, and I'm sure one could maybe be fashioned to fit with, you know, a little bit of hole drilling and some brackets. But yeah, like maxi van. So I'm gonna look. I'll look around, but I'll probably I need to call ADCO and ask them how much they want for those front ones. Yeah, like Tail says, most of the stuff's set up for highway speeds. I mean, here's my thing. You know, it's great to see these cars on the street operating as they was actually meant to. You know, I mean, what percentage of them was actually high performance made for the drag strip cars? Very few, as you know, because you don't really find them anymore. So most of them are set up for the road. And to me, that's the most beautiful part of them. You can drive around, you can enjoy them, and not so much quarter mile at a time. If that's what you want to do, that's great. Yeah, and you know, you're not really cutting corners either, like Mopar Nut says, and pulling G's. But at the same time, when you're making kind of a tight emergency corner, you feel that sway going on. You just kind of imagine yourself hitting the side and sliding down into a ditch. We don't want that. Yeah, you're supposed to run the fattest gear and top out or just for that 10 seconds. Because, you know, most people make race cars out of stuff and then they hack it all apart, and then the car pretty much dies somewhere after they lose interest. Rarely do they seem to go anywhere after, you know, some people let go of them because they've hacked them up. I know it definitely helped put in the wider tires front and back. You feel a little bit of that stability, but it just needs, because I didn't lower it or anything. It sets kind of high, stock springs and all that for 3/4 ton. So it's you know, and plus I'm used to driving. I actually have this 2010 Camaro. I'm used to driving that, so you got to remember we're making about a 4-foot raise in the top of our head and top heavy distribution. Cut the top off the lower center of gravity. Either that or you put a bunch of weight in the bottom to hold it down lower. I mean, now, I will say, some of you are like kind of joking about pulling G's in a van. Make sure you look up Dodgebon. Look them up on YouTube, and I'll type it in here. I think it's spelled look up Dodgebon, and some of you may see something that you have never seen before. And it has to do with Dodge vans and the Japanese. So if you're not familiar with Dodgebon, which means Dodgebon in Japanese means Dodge van. Yeah, Doug's he's on the chain. He knows what's up. But in short, they race those things. And you'll see maxi vans, which, you know, they're monstrously long and back heavy. And they will race those things. Yep, and they drift them. And they will paint them in all the old Mopar cars. You'll see guys wearing Mopar jackets, and they're over in like Tokyo. So we think everybody's all obsessed about Japanese vehicles over here, but there's actually those groups that kind of obsess about some of our stuff over there. it's kind of cool. Is it like the Taliban? Not quite. Yeah, like Mofo says, you feel like you're going, you know, it's quite a startling contrast going from a newer Camaro to the old van. But you gotta kind of take the van for what it is. It's like just a big truck, you know. So that's cool. But it does drive really good. Got the brakes that we put on. You know, had it had 4-wheel drum brakes. And I think it was 11-inch drums. And I went to the discs, which came off that '77 van in the junkyard, and then we rebuilt everything there, new bearings and rotors and pads and all that stuff. And it brakes as good as the Camaro. I was very surprised at how well it brakes. I was showing my brother, I was coming up to a stop sign. I was coming up there kind of hot. And I said, watch these brakes. These brakes are really good. And I just kind of punched them, not enough to, you know, skid, but just enough to really get a nice firm stop on it. And I thought I would come up to the line at the stop sign, but I still fell about 30 feet short. So yep. Well, and the good thing about the van I've noticed is that it starts every time. You know, depending on the heat, it might, you know, kind of strain to get some fuel in the carburetor right, but once it catches, it'll light. And so far it's very reliable. I was surprised about the radiator because it's sat there with coolant in it for all those years, 2 decades, you know, and it's even got the cap on it still, and it's not giving me any problems. I probably will replace the cap anyways, get a little better pressure on it, but it's doing good. I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it before I, you know, venture out too far with it. I'll be right back, guys. Okay. How fun, dude. $85 for semi-metallic. Yeah, you have a lot of room in the vans, floor-wise. I think the later ones had just a little hump right at the back of the doghouse opening. But it's not even close. I wouldn't think to touch in the old van if you did do that with the transmission. Plus, you have all kinds of room underneath there. Make sure you guys hit like. Right down below, hit the like button. If you like it. I mean, if you don't, you don't. We're just trying to conduct the channel here. I mean, no biggie. I feel like I've already been on for 25 minutes. If we put an A15 in that van, it's got a 727 now. If you did that, it would be get quite the gas mileage. But remember, I put a 271 in there now. It's doing the job right now. It'll get us by until they raise gas prices to the moon. But I didn't show you these. I've been sitting there playing with this. This is the foam ring. Okay. When this dries completely, I think I need to trim them because see how thick they are. They're like 3/8 of an inch thick. They will go in here underneath. And it'll hold your thinner drinks and keeps them from rattling around. So I might trim every other one of these little slots back a little bit. I've got 4 of them made. Fit in there. Oh. No rattle drinks. So you just realized. So that means you've done too many of them and then forgot about it. Yeah, well, one thing I didn't do was I didn't put sometimes you would get a recess down here and they would put like a piece of cork in there and that would absorb any of the moisture or anything like that. But sometimes that would help kind of center the drink to be smaller than these holes up here. So I thought, well, I could have almost did it, but I was like, I'll just kind of keep it smooth. And I see a lot of these newer cars, they'll have little pieces of foam sticking around. And I had some of this laying back there from when I did the dash pad. It's actually the same foam as I did the dash pad with. Closed cell foam. You can buy it at a Hobby Lobby. And a lot of times they'll just call it cosplay foam because a lot of these kids, they'll make like armor and stuff out of it and they'll paint it and do all kinds of stuff, make like, Star Wars costumes. And you can buy a big sheet of it. And so I just cut several of them out, slipped them in there, and I've been adjusting on the size. I made these last night, and they're about the size of one of these cans here, like a stain can, but see a regular Coke can or Pepsi runs a little bit smaller than this, so they will kind of fit in there really good, and then if they move around, they'll just kind of lasso it in. So it should make it a little nicer. Oh, I was going to ask you guys, if you follow along enough, you realize I have the 72 Duster. It's in queue. It's waiting back in the shed. So one of my plans I really wanted to do was when I got it last May, so over a year ago. I was wanting to have it really hitting the channel by about now, really. At least a year later after I got it, so May of this year. Haven't gotten it yet. We're still fooling with the van, having a lot of fun with that. But what would you like to see? Would you like to see it mixed up a little bit and we get into the Duster? And, and then we just kind of bounce back and forth between them until we get the van done. Then you just progress through with the Duster. But let me know what you think of that. Do you like kind of where staying track? Because I know a lot of channels, they are all over the place. So if you like one way or the other, let me know. Yeah, I'm not really big on K cars. There's actually a guy right down here in town. He drives one every day. It's, I think, a Dodge 600, and just a car. You know, I think they had a purpose. Duster, okay. So there's one for the pulling the Duster back into, because we got sheet metal, a lot of the sheet metal for it. I won't go beyond 2 projects, at least at the same time. Down the road we might get into something else, but we're not just kind of keep jumping project after project after project and not finishing it. Dodge Omni limo, that would be kind of interesting. Iron Horse Garage, thanks for coming. He wasn't very enthusiastic. So I guess it wasn't a labor of love. Mike, how you doing over there in Illinois? Happy Friday to you. Van Duster Junkyard visits. Okay. Hey, that's why I ask. Because right now we have all this kind of interior stuff going on with the van. I'm going to try to get the body work laying down. I really, I don't like doing body work, and it tends to go on forever. You go through one swipe with it, and you got to go through it again and again and again and again, and you're still not right. So it takes a lot of time for me. Yeah, the junkyard that we usually go to, at least since the beginning of the year, it is so grown up in there now. You actually, if you look at those videos and you see how you kind of see another car off a little bit, it's almost impossible there. That's like a jungle. And so it's kind of hard to kind of really dig through stuff, because you might run into a snake or stuff like that. But yeah, we could probably try to pick that up again when it cools off and the leaves fall off. But there's another junkyard up here I really want to get to. I don't know how much he has. I don't think he has as much, but we'll try that. That he has a club cab, like a 73 or 74 D series truck, and he has it separated from all the other stuff. It's got vines growing through it, no engine, but it's a dually axle, like 73 or 74. I think Sherwood green metallic club cab. Show my love for GMs. I think you've pretty much seen my love for GMs. I tried GM, but it's rotting away. I would say it would need rocker panels and probably lower fenders at least. But I haven't really looked at it that well. But it seems mostly complete. I think it's got a white painted roof on it. So it has the grill in it, the tin grill. But it's got the dually fenders and everything on it. I know you don't see too many of those, especially that early. Yeah, this stuff. But yeah, it stole whatever love I had left. I'll have to say, like, okay, when I had that '81 Camaro, and you take the door panel off, and you have the door shell with the window in it. Well, the window tracking was similar to the Chrysler stuff, where you have a couple of tracks, you can adjust it in and out, and then you had your window crank. Well, first problem when I took the panel off and I was kind of seeing what I had, I noticed all where they put all the access holes for either getting your hand in there and taking, running the bolt through or something like that. There was cracks at every corner, and some of the cracks extended about 2 inches. And they would just kind of hairline off, And there was probably 30 cracks in the driver's door. So when I went through the doors, I welded all that up. I drilled them out, welded them all back up. I mean, I had a lot of welding just to fix these cracks on it. Like the metal was brittle or something. So I go to the passenger side, and it was the exact same thing. It wasn't as bad. There was probably about 20 or so. But I still had a bunch of cracks at the weld up. So then it comes down to I get them all painted, and I'm putting the window stuff back in, all the hardware. And, I adjust the windows as per, like you would Chrysler stuff or anything like that, And you put the window crank on there. So you go to crank it up, and it is like so hard to crank. And I'm like in there taking it back apart and loosening it up a little bit, trying to get it to just smoothly roll up and down. And they kept wanting to do this sideways, and the little fittings in there was jamming. And so I finally got it where it roll up like it should. It wouldn't go sideways or crooked. But those little cranks that you get which they're like Chrysler, they're pot metal, they're chromed, and they had the little clip you had to put in there, which I like having the nut in it or the screw. Put the thing in there, and you go to turn it, and it has to be, the depth on it has to be just right, because if it goes in too far, or if it comes out too far while it's kind of floating on there, it'll just slip on the gear. Well, after so many times doing it, it just instantly stripped the splines out of the window crank. So I went and found some other ones, put them in, and they did the exact same thing. So I never had like a good operating window on either side of that car. And I was just perplexed with it. And I thought the bolts were way too small. They held those 6-foot-long doors nearly. So if all my angst at a GM product went anywhere, we go towards the doors on that Camaro, that '81 Camaro. Doesn't TTI make headers for a A-body big block that doesn't have to go through the fender well? I mean, they're real tight, aren't they? And I did not see the Doug Camaro review of the '87 Dodge conversion maker. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, I would imagine it'd be pretty tight. I remember a guy had a Duster. He Pro Streeted it, and he put a Hemi in it. And I remember the valve cover was about that far from touching the master cylinder. Yeah. Good luck changing the starter. Even a mini starter, I bet that would be still tight. Maximally tight. Oh, and I have some to add. Remember, I had one of my T-shirts that I got from Teespring. Got about a year ago, and it had my logo on it. And after about 2 washes, it disintegrated all the imagery. So I now just have a plain purple shirt. Well, I've got this one about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and I've washed it several times, and it has held up. So whatever that means, you're not sure. Doug, thanks for coming in and chatting with us. Have a good night, buddy. Big block A bodies, 20,000. That's probably like three darts or something in that. One thing I noticed about when I was doing that 81 Camaro, I did the LS swap in it, fuel injected. And it was odd to me how many guys, they would run the exhaust out of the fender. They would just cut a big hole, about yay big. They would run the exhaust right out. Maybe more the turbo guys or something, but it was just like an epidemic of guys. They would run them right out of the fender. Big nasty hole. In the 68 darts, they had a A100 van seats in them because they were so small. My van had the same seats in them when I got it. So they put them in B models too. They weighed nothing. A couple springs, a little bit of foam, some vinyl. That was it. Yeah. Some of them even put a little trim ring around it. Looked like it was their gas filler. I actually owned a dart years ago that her McCandless knew of. I don't know if he did anything to it, but he knew of. Wasn't anything special. 74 dart, 318. I think the guy that owned it knew him, and the Herb had some suggestions for him on the car. What happened to the Camaro? I sold it. It's up in Washington State now. I found some video of that car the other day. It was not newer, like after it was done, but it was when I was kind of in the middle of working on it. I might have to dig that up and post it. I was trying to make like a pre-Night Rider car out of that. It was going to be pretty cool. I got some of it there, but some of the products that I got was a little inferior, like the gauges, digital gauges and all that. Hey, Mitch. How you doing, buddy? Good deal. talk about bringing the duster out soon. Since I'm still, well, Captain Dude, did you listen? I said a pre-Knight Rider era Knight Rider style car. We're talking about doing the duster, bringing it in around to the garage and mixing it up with the van a little bit, since it's all van right now. Fastest car I've driven, even though it was worn out, I had a friend that had a 71 Plymouth GTX with a 4-speed and a 440. It was a factory 4-speed Dana car, so I had a 350 Ford Dana. And it was worn out, but it still had gobs of power, smoking out the back and everything. And it was a man's car. It was put my whole body into the clutch pedal and then rode them gears. But that was it. I think I spun through about 2 gears and went up, and it was going about 90 in just a few seconds. I couldn't sit there and say, oh, it was exactly that, but it was probably the fastest car I did. But I don't drive a whole lot of other cars either. EVS2 Edelbrock. Yeah, it seems like all people have trouble with Hollies. Either you got to really know the Holly or you don't know the Holly. Undercover. My brother used to live in this town I live in back in the 90s, and when I would visit him, I would ride his bike around the neighborhood. Kind of a nice neighborhood. And somebody, I swear, had a Barracuda 70 through 74 sitting under a car cover. It was when I was really first starting to get into them, but the front fender, you could see where it kind of came down like that, and then you see the body line on the side. And it looked pretty wide, and I never knew what it was, but it looked like a Barracuda to me. And sometimes I'll drive by that place. Of course, it's long gone. I just remember that spot where he used to sit there under a cover. In my fleet, well, you know the van, you know the Duster, my 2010 Camaro, and other than my wife's car, which is just a Taurus, that's pretty much it. If you're talking to me. Sure. Yeah, John Schneider's got some, he's got a few General Lees, or at least painted like General Lees. But what's up? Yeah, and I follow him on Facebook. He seems like a pretty good guy. I don't have too many stories about that Camaro, other than just I worked on it for a few years and put an LS in it with the transmission. We rebuilt the rear just like we did on this van, put a different gear in it. I had the same guy that did that one. And I had digital gauges in it, which were garbage. And they were not Chevy or anything. They was Intellitronics. They looked good, but they didn't amount to anything. And I had a lot of switch pods and switch panels, and I was going to put an overhead console that I was going to build it out of fiberglass, and I just never did. I kind of lost interest in the car. It just wasn't what I thought it was. when I got it done, started driving it. It didn't seem like a very ergonomic car to me. It always looked like one, like it could be like really comfortable, I guess, for a sports car, but it just did not. It didn't suit me very well. Yeah, this is post-wagon Taurus. It's like a 15 model. Yeah, Stand on it. Yeah, it's like a kind of a Smoking the Bandit style movie. ELB. What's ELB? Lean burn? Electronic lean burn? I bet that's what it is. All these letters. Everybody plays the letter game. I gotta remember what their letters mean. ELB. Late 70s dream car. My late 70s dream car would be any car that was built of better quality than they were. But I don't know. Everything kind of sucked in the late 70s. They had really good styling early, and then they wanted to make everything luxurious, and then they got real gaudy with it. But I don't know. Late 70s. Wow, that's a good question because I don't know how to answer it. It just seems like everything I think of that era was going down, and everything new was just different. And Firebirds, Trans Ams, they were really popular, but I know there's so much like a Camaro, and I was not crazy about my Camaro after I got it done. It just was not I always felt awkward in that car. I wouldn't think the Pontiac would be too different. Yeah, and I was thinking maybe a Magnum or a Cordoba. Yeah, it might have to be like a Cordoba or Magnums are okay. I don't care for the front end that they did on them. Just trying to think. You know what? I guess if, as tough of a question as that is, I can give you an answer. I do like, and this is more on looks. I do like those Volare Roadrunners from about 76 or 77 that had all the treatment on them. That had the nice colors, the graphics. I think some of them had the scoops, the rally wheels, and a 360. And I would, bucket seats, all that stuff. That would probably be, that would probably be the car. So a Volare Roadrunner. And I like them better than an Aspen RT. So. Yeah. Mitch, you probably thought, oh yeah, they was still disposable cars back then, but at some point that just stopped. Yeah, because I got a picture of a dealer picture of a 70s, I think it was a 76 Roadrunner, and it was red, had the black striping along the doors on the bottom, and said Roadrunner, had the Roadrunner on it. I think they had the fender flares and the louvers on the side windows. Yeah, and they were F-body Mopar. And yeah, they was more kind of like a Duster, but I didn't think they was as good as a Duster. They had probably a better interface on the dash, modern wise. But other than that, they was not the greatest cars. But that as far as a new car looking good, that was a pretty good car. Other than that, yeah, it would probably be a Cordova. Because here's how I look at cars. Um, in this, or let's start early '60s. Everybody was coming out of that space age 1950s look. They was trying to make everything look like a rocket, and then it just got so much like it like overstimulated everybody. So they thought, well, let's make clean looking cars. So then they got into like the '65 Impala, and then you had the '64 Dodges, and everything started getting real slick, real clean looking, very minimal trim in the '60s. And with a couple of exceptions here and there. And then you got to the late '60s and early '70s. I think that was like the pinnacle of like styling right there, because it wasn't gaudy, flashy, tacky, but it was like the body of the car carried it. It didn't matter what trim you had on it, that carried it. The way the cleanliness of the grills, and I'm talking all of them: Ford, Chevy, GM, all their brands, and then Chrysler and AMC. They all just had nice looks to them. And it's like, I think after that, you kind of go, well, where can we go from here? And then the gas crunch happened to happen. That's like some kind of an irony or something. But it's like when that happened, they all kind of had to go a different direction, because they went, you look at think about it this way. You have a 66, 67 Plymouth Belvedere or Satellite or a Coronet. Look how boxy those cars are. They're like insanely square looking. It only took 3.5 years before, by the time those was selling the last cars of those in late '67 till late '70 or early '71, you had the '71 Roadrunners and the '71 Charger. Look how curvy they went from just in a 3.5, let's just say 4-year period. Think back 4 years ago. That puts you about 2017. Almost the equivalent in later the decade part. You go in from a 6 and 7 part of a decade to the next decade to one, which is like now 2021. In that 4 years, how much the styling was radicalized, because they was knocking out. They got that platform, and I'm talking Chrysler, and then Camaros with they went from the '67 Camaro to the '70 Camaro, and the Torinos went from pretty fast looking, or let's just say a Fairlane. Fairlanes were pretty dull looking, and then they got really slick and just mean looking. Just in that, because they were just popping out designs, because it was all, I think it was just like hitting a sweet spot. It was hitting all these natural shapes that was just working really good with the cars, whether it be on the grills, the taillights, the quarter panels, the roofs, and all this stuff. And then they got to about '72, and they changed them, and I think there was some stuff there that was good. Chrysler was like the last holdout, I thought, because '73, '74, their cars still looked really good, the base models. Roadrunners, Chargers. But then like GM, they started like really getting funky with like the Laguna bodies, and then it was like they kind of jumped early on that, and because those cars just honestly are not as popular as like a '72 Chevelle. So it was just they got that real swanky look, and then Chrysler went swanky, and then Ford was just making everything look like it was a Lincoln or something. And then so they had to kind of go a different direction, and everything got really bulky and awkward, because a lot of that was government mandated. Yeah, the Malays era, Jason's garage said. So yeah, the sweet spot is around about, I don't know, about 1970, I think. And you say you kind of hate Volare. Yeah, I mean they weren't great cars. You still see a few of them around, the Aspens Volares. Their claim to fame was rusting on the showroom floor, with the lower fenders would start showing bubbles through the, and you see a couple around, they made it. But it was the late 70s, the metal was really bad because it was like, wasn't quite alloy, and it, it's over sheathed stuff, and it was cheap. Just didn't hold up very good. Dodge trucks were bad, especially around 78 or 79. Yeah, and Roy Kit Car, he's into those cars, you know. And they don't make body. They should make body panels for them. And they should make them out of the better metal. And you probably have some great cars then, because they're still out there. Yeah. Now the friend I talked about earlier, he had the 71 GTX. He had sold it because he was not mechanically inclined so much. So it just wasn't his. It needed restoration. He was going to have me do it, but it was a money thing. So he had sold it, and a couple years later, he was getting the old car bug, and we found an 80 Trans Am. And what motor did it have? It had the 301 non-turbo, which is kind of a pig. And it was very, very rotted out. Actually, his leaf springs, where it mounts towards, like in under the back seat, the front part of the perch had actually broke away as he drove into my driveway, because he pulled into my driveway, hit the little gutter, and I saw the wheel in the wheel well just go. And I want to stop. And he'd been driving it around all day. I don't know how much it would work around like that. And I had to reinforce all that. But other than that, I think Pontiac's was a little better than Camaro's, because looking at the dash on those, it was a little more solid and some other little features. Now, I just don't know how about the bodies was almost identical in the way they was built. So the seats was about the same, and that was my big gripe, was the seats. And they was set so low in there, you couldn't really do much else with that. Yeah. There's a 72 Charger sitting down here in town at a shop. And when you go by there, those 71, 72 B bodies, well, really through 74, they still look like spaceships compared to even newer cars. They was all curves. And they all look very menacing. '71 through '74. Yeah. I'm a big fan of the '73, '74 Roadrunners. I like the side window a little better than the earlier ones. I like the front ends a little bit better. I think probably the only down part compared to the earlier models is the way the trunk, maybe it's the bumpers that kind of point out, make them look a little skinnier back there. But I like the graphics and the hoods on those Roadrunners for those years. Yeah, 72 is kind of the last year, I guess, for B bodies having that traditional chassis. What's your opinion, Moparnut, on the '73, '74 cars? Do they ride better in comparison for you, or are they generally a benefit, or would you consider them either the same or worse than like a '71 or '72 ride wise? Because I always wondered how that rubber isolator thing worked out. on like just a run-of-the-mill car. Have to mod them. I used to see a lot of diplomats and Grand Furies in the town I was born in because it was a Chrysler town, so you saw a lot of those cars. I even saw a Plymouth Caravelle one time. I don't know what platform that was on, but I think it was mainly a Canadian issue. Somehow it was there in town. I remember seeing the trunk lid. It said Caravelle. It may have been like a Grand Fury type of style. Well, guys, I think I'll hop off here. It's getting a little late and getting close to supper time. So get a little food in the belly, and we'll be working on some videos probably tomorrow. I need to actually kind of finish 2 or 3 of them. I have a couple loose ends. I'm going to get those done. And then hopefully Monday, I'll have a new video out for y'all. So. Yeah, y'all have a great weekend, guys. Yes, thanks for coming to the Hoosier Garage. Appreciate it, guys, everybody.